Therefore, you've dealt with a lot of these challenges in terms of that people are putting up against Christian belief. What do you think are the biggest challenges for people accepting or even considering Christian belief, especially in the West today?
Well, now, the most significant challenges culturally may not be intellectual in nature. I think perhaps one of the greatest obstacles is the kind of scientism that seems to pervade popular culture. And this is very strange because this sort of view of knowledge is completely eclipsed and abandoned among philosophers who specialize in this area. But there is a very widespread belief that the only source of knowledge and truth is physical science, and that if something can't be proven through the physical sciences, it's meaningless or cannot be known. And that, I think, is simply a false and self-refuting theory of knowledge. I mean, consider the statement, you should only believe what can be scientifically proven. Can that statement be scientifically proven? Well, obviously not. It's just an arbitrary definition. So that the view is literally self-refuting. And yet, this seems to persist in popular culture very widely and prevents people, I think, from finding spiritual truth and spiritual knowledge.
It's the case that people don't live like it's true that there's only materialistic, physical answers to the deep questions.
That's a good point. They don't understand that in the way they treat other people and expect to be treated, they are affirming moral values and intrinsic worth of human beings in a way that cannot be established scientifically. Science is ethically neutral. It tells us how the world is, but it doesn't tell us how the world ought to be. For that, you need ethics, and yet ethics are inescapable in everyday life. Every day we wake up, we determine by how we treat other people whether or not we think that moral values are objective or just subjective opinions in our head.
The philosopher Alain de Botton makes the case that it is logical to say that we can lead morally perfect lives without recourse to the divine. How do you respond to that?
I would say that's the wrong question, Simon. The issue is not whether we need to believe in God in order to live good and decent lives. I'm not claiming that it's belief in God that's necessary. Rather, my argument is that we need God Himself to serve as a transcendent foundation and plumb line for objective good and evil, right and wrong. And whether or not you need to believe in this in order to live a good life is really quite irrelevant. It's God that is necessary for objective moral values to exist, not belief in God.
There was a writer who talked about scientism.
Yes.
Can you comment on the dangers, perhaps?
Yes, I would be glad to comment on this because I believe that this is rife in our culture. Scientism is a theory of knowledge. It's not science, it's a theory of knowledge. And what it says is that science, physical science, is the only source of knowledge. So that if something cannot be scientifically proven, it's irrational to believe in it. You should only believe what can be scientifically proven. Now, this is the philosophy that I spoke of that dominated the 1930s and the 40s and that has now collapsed among philosophers who know better. Why? Well, first of all, this is far too narrow a theory of knowledge to be adequate. There are vast ranges of truth that we know and believe and are rational in believing, but that cannot be scientifically proven. For example, logic and mathematics are presupposed by science, not proven by science. Truths of ethics, like what is good or evil, cannot be scientifically established. Truths of aesthetics, the beautiful, like the good, is also not accessible scientifically. Metaphysical truths, like the existence of the external world or the reality of the past, cannot be scientifically proven. These are metaphysical assumptions. Finally, even science itself, ironically, science is permeated by unprovable assumptions, so that if you only believe what could be scientifically proven, you would destroy science. Just one example. In the special theory of relativity, it is assumed that the one-way velocity of light in space from point A to point B is constant. But we can't prove that. All we can measure is the round trip velocity of light from A to B and back to A again. It could go out at one rate and come back at another. We just have to presuppose or assume that the one-way velocity is constant, but it can't be scientifically proven. So this theory of knowledge is far too narrow to be adequate. But the really crushing criticism, Andrew, was the realization that this theory is self-refuting. Just ask yourself, is the statement, you should only believe what can be scientifically proven, is that statement scientifically provable? Well, no. It's just an arbitrary definition, and it's not even a very good one. So that if you only believed what can be scientifically proven, you should never believe that you should only believe what can be scientifically proven. It's self-refuting. And that's why among philosophers, this theory of knowledge is virtually, universally abandoned. And it's sad to see certain people educated in the earlier era of the 20th century who are still holding on to this. People like Lawrence Krauss, for example, who are scientistic. But you can confidently reject that when your mates tell you that if something can't be proven by science, then it's irrational to believe it.
That's helpful.